It's Rebecca Johnson of Supergirl Radio. I'm getting the live stream started, so we'll get to officially be talking about My Adventures with Superman, episode 3, titled My Interview with Superman. Lots of with and Superman in these titles. But we'll be talking about that here in a minute. Looks like I'm having trouble streaming to Facebook for some reason. It says that this may be an issue on Facebook's end. Is it possible the stream was ended or deleted on Facebook? No. All right. Okay. That's interesting. So if you're on Facebook, you're probably not going to hear this. So we'll try to get that resolved. I don't know why it's having Facebook issues, but that is strange. So YouTube should still be able to hear and see me as I'm going live. I'm going to check this on YouTube. Yes. So we should be on YouTube okay, but Facebook for some reason is having issues. So I'll get that resolved by next time. Very, very bizarre. Sometimes StreamYard just it has issues, unfortunately. It's still kind of buggy in some respects. But we will get started in a little bit. Morgan has told me that she is going to be delayed a few minutes. So what I have planned to do is just hang out with the chat until she gets here. So if you have a question, comment, concern, observation, however you want to put it, you can put that in the live chat and we can have a conversation about whatever you want to talk about. But to give you a tease about what we're gonna do for Supergirl Radio for this week, we're going to be talking about My Adventures with Superman episode 3. We will also be talking about the Flash being on digital and talking about the physical media that hasn't come out yet and what that might look like and might entail. I always personally go for the physical media, especially for things like I'm really interested in. I'll probably get it I wasn't crazy about the Flash movie, but I'll probably get it from a Supergirl perspective and a collector perspective, just to have that in my collection, to have whatever various steel books or whatever comes out. There's a 4K Ultra and a Blu-ray. And a DVD. So there's all that coming out. But right now, the digital version is all we've got so far. So we'll be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about the animated Crisis on Infinite Earths that got announced at San Diego Comic-Con. So we'll talk about that and Supergirl's possible involvement maybe in that animated feature. Then we will also be getting to an email from Mark, who sent us some great feedback. So I've got some answers for you there, Mark. Hopefully we'll be talking about some of your concerns. Also got a snap judgment from Mark. So if you have a snap judgment about My Adventures of Superman episode 3, feel free to drop those in the chat if you would like to participate in that. And we'll probably just be talking about various things and then wrap it up here. We're also going to be doing a Wonder Woman pilot pod for the Supergirl Radio Patreon. So if you have not subscribed or become a Legion of super sponsor, you can do that by going to patreon.com/Supergirl Radio. So if you would like to hear about our thoughts about the 1975 live action television pilot starring Linda Carter, we will be doing that for our pilot pod for this time around. So very excited to talk about that with Morgan, because I'm very interested in her thoughts, because I have a lot of thoughts about that. Mostly that Victor Newman from The Young and the Restless is in it. That's very exciting for me personally. But there's lots to discuss there. So if you're interested in that, go to patreon.com/Supergirl Radio and you can become a Legion of Super sponsor and get that discussion. So we'll be talking about all of that coming up this evening. But let us know if you do have any comments or questions or things of that nature. And hopefully we'll get started here in a little bit. I'm just going to hang out. I guess I could also say that if anybody's interested, I saw Oppenheimer. I didn't get to see Barbie, but I did see Oppenheimer in IMAX, glorious IMAX. So that was a lot of fun. The sound was great. Picture was great. It looked like he shot most of it in IMAX, which I'm going to have to do a little digging into because I thought it might only be certain sequences. So the fact that it was mostly in the IMAX aspect ratio. I'm now curious as to how much of it he actually shot in IMAX, because typically in the past they've said that IMAX is difficult to shoot for the entire movie because the cameras are loud, so you can't really do a lot of dialogue. So it used to be that they would just shoot action sequences in IMAX because there would be no dialogue, but there's a lot of dialogue in Oppenheimer, so there is that. If you are interested in some Barbie conversation, we also have a discussion about the Barbie marketing on the Supergirl Radio Patreon. So if you're interested in that, you can become a Legion Super sponsor and check that out. I also thought I would share, because I just discovered this, that apparently the background painter for My Adventures of Superman has released some background images from the show. I was very happy to see this. I guess there's been some requests to getting iPhone backgrounds, maybe, because I see some vertical versions of them down here. So people might be using them as iPhone backgrounds, but I thought that was really cool. Background images include Metropolis Cityscape, the Daily Planet building, exterior and interior outdoor cafe, and many more. So yeah, so the background painter from My Adventures with Superman has released some of the background images that are used in the show. So that is pretty awesome. I gotta say, that's pretty cool. And I needed that, especially because I've not been able to get promotional stills for this show except for going to IMDb. So there's not a lot of picture options, image options to work with for thumbnails and StreamYard backgrounds and things like that. So so the fact that I have these backgrounds now, I can use them for my background here. So this is one of the background painters images that was released. It looked like on Twitter, now X. Although I think the app still says Twitter, so I don't think it has gone away totally. But if you're interested, Superman homepage has that. I'll link it in the video description below. I'll also put that in the audio commentary show notes if you are interested in listening on the audio podcast feed, which if you're listening in the audio podcast feed, you're not going to hear any of this, so it won't matter anyway. But I'll also link it in case people want to see it, because I think that's pretty cool. So it looks like Morgan may be ready to go. Okay, I didn't have to vamp for too long.
Hello. Greetings from another room in my house.
Oh, very nice. Do the cats come in this room?
The cats are actually in this room. Can you see that Beaker? If you look, Beaker is on the cat tree behind me.
Oh, yes.
Beaker, look over to the camera.
Oh,
yes,
he did look over. Yes,
your public awaits you.
He did. He did hear his name.
He loves the camera. He's like, oh.
He does look very comfortable.
My moment?
Yeah. So I was just sharing that the background painter for My Adventures with Superman released some background images
Ooh.
So that you can use for, various things. So I was like, yeah, that's
lock
cool.
Screen, baby.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. I'm actually using it for this background here. So,
oh, it looks beautiful.
It looks great, but I'm having to justify myself one way or the other. So it's kind of awkward. Yeah, it's kind of awkward. But yeah, so we will talk about My Adventures of Superman episode 3 coming up. So Morgan, if you're ready, let's go ahead and officially get started.
Sure. Lezalar's downfall is just that eyebrow twitch that she can't help doing. Could you imagine if Hope was like, let's add that to the PowerPoint? Excuse me?
What year is it?
How old am I? This is how the podcast breaks up.
This is the last episode of Supergirl Radio. You want a Kryptonian? You got one.
Is it a movie about saving Argo? The answer to that one is no. It's called Witch for a Summer! Exclamation point. Where does she want to go? Ask her. Talk to her. Really commune with flat Supergirl.
Did we set the bar too high or too low?
I think we set the bar real medium.
You're doing an intensely adequate podcast.
Good.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Noyce, and you're listening to Supergirl Radio.
McGurk! I love
Not
typing.
mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom. Because
She looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. So fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Welcome to Supergirl Radio, your source for all things related to the CW Supergirl TV series and the character of Kara Zor-El. My name is Rebecca Johnson.
I'm Morgan Glennon.
And I just realized in the doc I had copied from a past episode that we did where we pretended that Morgan
I almost
was me.
introduced myself as Rebecca Johnson. And I was like, no, Morgan, you know your own name. You got this.
Who are you?
Who am I?
That just feels right in discussing my adventures with Superman and the identity, the theme of who am I? Who am I in the who's my real person that I am? So I think that is actually pretty fitting. Well, we are live and wired on the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel to discuss and review the third episode of the new animated series, My Adventures with Superman, titled My Interview. I'm sorry, there's a lot of with the Superman in these titles. It's My Adventures with Superman, and the episode is My Interview with Superman.
Oh, that's confusing.
It is confusing. I want to make it right here. Our apologies to the Facebook folks who normally watch us on Facebook. If somehow on StreamYard, Facebook got disconnected before we went live for some reason. So we're not streaming to Facebook for this episode, but we'll get that corrected for next time. So it was a very weird oddity that happened this week, but we will check on that. And before we get into our episode discussion, if you are watching us on YouTube, maybe give us a like and a subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already subscribed already, that would be great. But before we get into all of the talk of My Adventures with Superman and the My Interview with Superman episode, we need to get to
the news.
Okay, and we have news. Did you know? After just 4 weeks in theaters, DC's The Flash is now available to watch at home. That might seem like a bad sign to you, and that's because it is.
Yeah.
Not great. A physical release on 4K Ultra HD, Blu-ray, and DVD is expected on September 5th, but Warner Brothers hasn't announced when fans can stream The Flash on Max. The Flash will run you about $24.99 on Apple TV, Amazon Prime Video, and other major digital platforms.
Yeah,
I did not know it was out already.
Yeah,
it is crazy.
Yeah, it's on digital, but we don't have the physical media yet, which I probably will get because it has Supergirl stuff in it. So got to add that to the collection. And also physical media is the superior visual.
It is. Thank you.
Yes, it is. It is the best way to view it because streaming is based on your internet and your buffering.
That's true. And you know what you'll know if you get it on physical media, that like some streaming company won't just delete it for a tax write-off someday.
That's
you'll
true.
always be able to watch it because you'll own it in your hands. Did you, by the way, Rebecca, did you see that like I think Disney or Marvel is like releasing WandaVision but it's just like a case, and then like in the case is like a playing card or something.
Yeah, I
Like,
did see this.
it's like it's not a DVD or anything. Like you can't watch the show. So, at least this one has a DVD. Or
It should,
some
but
kind
make sure
in
you
it.
check your sets and
Look
make
at
sure there's
open
discs
them up
in there.
and be like,
Yeah,
are
make
there
sure you
discs?
open that.
Have they already deleted it for tax purposes?
Yeah, I don't fully understand that WandaVision thing because
I was like, what's the point of this? It's just like a little metal box, like a decorative box that
I
you
mean,
own now.
you could, if you were a big like fan, you could be like, "Hey, I'm going to add this to my collection." But why send out a box that looks like a DVD or a Blu-ray set?
It is in the DVD shape, so one
Yes.
would imagine. I feel like what's going to happen is a lot of people are going to buy it thinking it's the DVDs.
Yeah, oh yeah,
And when it gets to their house, they're going to be confused
and they're going to be mad.
and angry. It's like what happened to my mom today, where she bought some shoes online and she got her shoes. She opened it up and there was only one shoe in there.
No.
And I told her, you are going to Italy in a few months, and I am hearing that is the newest fashion in Milan.
to wear just one shoe.
Just
yes.
one shoe.
It was so fashionable, so in vogue at the moment.
She's going to be barefooting it around the country.
Yeah, that WandaVision thing is strange. It sort of sounded like to me that they had swag sitting around,
Yes.
and they were trying to like offload it. So they were like, "Here's what we'll do:
What if
we won't put it out on DVD, but we'll take the box and then put the stuff that we can't get rid of. We'll put it in the box and then sell that."
Like,
that's
what
what
if-
it feels like to me.
What if we put some swag in a box? People love boxes. That's what I'm hearing. Now, I have polled a lot of people. All of them are cats, but they love boxes.
Yeah, because what you really want is another box to fill up space in your house that's just going to take up space.
It's weird.
I kind of want to buy it though. Like,
just to see what's inside. You know what they should have done? They should have been like, it's a mystery box.
Yes.
What's in there?
Yes.
And what they actually should have done is say, it was a mystery box. You don't know what's in there. And a couple of people are going to actually get the season. So,
like a Willy Wonka thing.
Yeah,
where
like
you
a
get a
Willy
golden
Wonka
ticket.
I got a golden DVD. They're like, Ma, Pa, quick, I got the Blu-ray.
You can run home to your grandparents who are all sleeping in the same bed.
All in
and
that same bed.
they don't seem very mobile.
And tell them we can afford a second bed now. We got WandaVision. We solved a lot of the marketing problems tonight.
They really
Call us
need to
anytime.
consult us on these things because we have much better ideas. But yeah, that box thing was super strange. But now I'm really curious, and I didn't even really like. I don't think I finished WandaVision, so I'm not a fan of it. But I'm kind of curious. It sparks my interest.
Right?
So there is that. So hopefully the Flash will actually be in a box set for us to pull out and pop into Blu-ray players. Well, the next bit of news that we have, according to IGN, DC has revealed its next two direct-to-video animated movies, and they're both based on two of the most iconic graphic novels of the 1980s. Crisis on Infinite Earths and Watchmen will receive animated adaptations in 2024, so that's coming up. I guess they're already
cool.
I hope. DC initially released a logo for Crisis on Infinite Earths online. I saw it in a tweet. I retweeted it. I shared it on Facebook. But that tweet and the Facebook post seems to be deleted for some reason. So I don't know if they were
a lot of mysteries happening right now.
So I assume this is still happening. People wrote articles about it. But yeah, so it was announced and then removed. But maybe, but maybe next year we'll be able to see Supergirl in the Crisis on Infinite Earths animated movie, in which she dies a very heroic death saving Superman.
Womp womp. It's like, hey, did you see The Flash and you thought to yourself, I wish I could see Supergirl die again? Well, we've got a movie for you. Why do they only release things where she's dying? I have a bone to pick with everyone.
It's becoming a trend, and I'm not very happy about it. So we'll keep our eyes on that to see if it actually happens, because that tweet going away was very strange to me. But hopefully that is still in the works. So it looks like Mind the Gap says in the chat, Crisis and Watchmen were rumored to be multi-parts. Personally, I like Final Crisis more than Crisis on Infinite Earths, and my screen name is a reference to that. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay, so there could be like a Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1 and Part 2. That's a lot. I mean, I guess you kind of, I mean, it sort of makes sense because Crisis on Infinite Earths, I don't know if you've ever,
big story, right?
It's a big story. I don't know if you've ever actually read the comic version, but it's very big and very dense. And it was one of the first things I started reading when I was a comic book reader. And
wow, you just like right into the deep end.
Now that I look back at it, I'm like, why did I do that to myself? But it taught me a lot about all the characters in DC Comics. But yeah, so I guess that would make sense if you sort of stretched it out into multi-parts. So I'm interested in that. So we'll keep our eye on that. All right. So I think that's going to do it for our news section. So let's get to discussing the third episode of the animated TV series, My Adventures with Superman, with the third episode titled My Interview with Superman. The episode description from Max reads, quote, Lois wants to interview Superman for the Daily Planet, and Clark must figure out how to help her while protecting his identity, unquote. So this episode is titled My Interview with Superman. So Morgan, what did you think about Lois's interview with Superman?
I thought she did a great job. She asked about 3 questions. She got like 1 to 2 quotes that she can like use to like she'll put the padding around the quotes. It's like I'm here to help, and she'll just like have to write like graph after graph to kind of set that quote up. Was it substantial? No. Did he answer any of her questions? Not really. He answered those questions in the way of like a seasoned politician, where like when he flies away, you go, wait, his answer was just like nothing, wasn't it? Did I get anything here? Did I not get anything at all here? But listen, she's got like 1 or 2 quotes that are usable. And for that, we should applaud her. I love that every one of his answers was like, I don't know myself. I'm just figuring it out. And like no follow-up questions like, hey, if you don't know all of your powers, do you think that could be like dangerous for the people of Metropolis?
That's a great question.
Feels like a good follow-up. But he would just be like, I'm just here to help. Off I go. I do appreciate that like it seems like Superman, despite like still not knowing all of his powers, has had like media training and is like really good at deflecting. Good job, Clark. Well done.
Yeah, she asks him 4 questions. The first one is, where do you come from? And he says he doesn't know. Then she asks, how do your powers work? And he's like, still figuring it out. And then
not quite sure.
And then she asks him the question everybody keeps asking him, who are you? And he doesn't really know. He's still working on that.
He's still not quite sure.
He doesn't. We still need to figure it out. We're 3 episodes in. He doesn't really know.
He looks at himself in the mirror every morning and he goes, Clark, who are you? But he hasn't gotten the answer yet. That's going to be like the season finale.
Oh my gosh. Are we going to have to drag this out for 6 to 10 episodes?
I'm dragging it out, man. Let's do it.
We maybe need to start like a who are you? Like a counter. Yeah.
Like,
she also asks him, what are you? Which I thought was an interesting question.
That's a variation.
I mean, obviously, Jimmy knows. Flamebird knows. He's an alien.
Why doesn't anybody? By the way, the one of the things that made me laugh the hardest in this episode was that every time he mentioned the name of his YouTube channel, it went, come on!
Yes. That is one of my favorite things about this show so far. I love this version of Jimmy Olsen so much. This
version of Jimmy, I like the first 2 episodes, I thought he was a little much. This episode, I like fully came back around on Jimmy. I was like, I love it. I love the bird sound in the background every time he mentions his channel. I love how hyped he was to get to 7 subscribers.
He was like, it's gonna be a 7 follower day. I can feel
that was like that's kind of like my quote of the month. It's what it's like to work in social media. Like, it's gotta be a 7 follower day.
Oh my gosh, yes, Jimmy was probably for me the highlight of this episode because also I know we're getting on a Jimmy tangent, but when and we'll talk about the Scoop Troop in a second, but when the Daily Planet, the real reporters are in their investigative room, Clark and Lois and Jimmy's little room with their murder board, he says something like, "Stand back, you monsters!" Like Jimmy's like really agitated that they're in there, and when they take the murder board out of the room, he's like, he said something like, "No, not the murder board!" Like he's so upset that they've like come into their space. I loved Jimmy in this episode. So good. The Flamebird thing, though,
that was so funny.
That is so good. It's like a caca or whatever it is. Oh man, it's whoever thought of that.
Just every time he mentions it,
yes.
too. And sometimes if it's like part of like a bigger discussion, it'll just be like faint in the background.
Yeah.
Like, Flamebird, and you'll hear caca. Perfect. No notes.
If this show was really smart about it, they would set up a YouTube channel.
Yes,
like a Flamebird. Yes. Is there a YouTube channel? I'm gonna look. I'm looking now.
I gotta know.
Yeah, youtube.com Flamebird. Does that exist?
Let's see, Flamebird.
I don't think so.
I see that people are searching for it though. The first thing that popped up when I typed in Flamebird was Flamebird DC.
Oh, well, Flamebird is a character from the comics.
Oh, yeah.
Supergirl at one point has been Flamebird. True. Yeah. But youtube.com/Flamebird. They need to make it happen.
Come on, guys.
Adult Swim seems like that would be something right up Adult Swim's alley.
It does. Like that's like the kind of marketing that they do.
Yeah. I really think, I would follow that YouTube channel.
And I feel like they could make like the crappiest YouTube videos ever, just like a picture with like some ominous voiceover, and it would feel correct for the show. Like you could spend like 5 minutes in like any video app, like in CapCut, and just like come up with the Flamebird videos, and people would like watch them and go, "No, yeah, that seems like what Jimmy would make."
Yeah. I think that's what they need to do. That's what I always used to love about 30 Rock. Is that sometimes during 30 Rock, they would say a website URL very like pointedly in the episode, and you would go look it up, and there was a website. I remember there was an episode where Tracy yells at .com and he says, "stopshowingoff.com," and you would type in stopshowingoff.com, and it took you to the 30 Rock website.
That's so good.
So that stuff, I miss that so much. I think they also did that maybe in the original run of Arrested Development. I feel like that also happened.
I think they did do that in the original run of Arrested Development. I think they did that with like the like Franklin Comes Alive, like the puppet that he has the album.
I forgot about Franklin.
I think there was like a whole website of like that had like some of the songs on it.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to rewatch that. I haven't watched that show. Forever.
The first 3 seasons of that show are insane.
They are peak sitcom episodes, so that is hilarious. But yeah. youtube.com/Flamebird. I'm waiting on it. I don't think anybody's taken it, so it's just there for the taking. So I think they should make that happen. So Lois gets this big interview with Superman. I don't know that she's going to be able to use it for much, but I'm curious if the Scoop Troop of Cat Grant, Steve Lombard, and Ronnie Troop are going to take her audio and her quotes for themselves. I'm curious how that goes down. Is she actually going to be able to write an article with the bare minimum of the answers that she has?
Could you imagine she comes into the Daily Planet and she is so proud of herself and she goes, "Guys, I got it. Guys, I scooped you. I have an interview with Superman." And they're like, "Great, we're just gonna we're gonna take your work like we did before and we're gonna rewrite it, but you'll get a story by credit." And then they listen to the interview, which is 2 minutes maximum. That's generous. And they're like, "Well, I don't know that qualifies for an interview. Perhaps, I guess questions were asked." So technically, could you imagine them being all excited, like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna be great," and then they listen to it and they're like, "Where's the rest of it?"
And also, how would she be able to prove that he was actually Superman? Like, what if she just interviewed some guy on the street and then brought the tape back and was like, "Hey, this is Superman."
Yeah, I know.
How would she be able to prove that was his voice?
Because it's weird because this show seems to be occurring in like a modern day time frame. So why not just like use your phone to record?
Did she use her phone? It looked like an audio recorder.
It was an audio recorder, I thought.
But maybe it was a phone. I don't know. How to go back.
I
Look at
remember
that.
those audio recorders. Those things were temperamental. Who knows if she even got that interview?
She might have had the wrong setting.
He's
It
like,
could
oh,
be
shoot, did I
anything.
forget to hit record? Good thing I remember all the answers because they were one word each.
There were not that many of them. Yeah, so we'll have to see if in the next episode if she actually gets that interview. But she does say something, I guess, before we get to the Scoop Troop. At the very end, let's go to the end of the episode because we're sort of talking about Lois. Lois and Clark are talking. Clark's like, "What did you think about Superman?" And she turns to the camera and says that she thinks that Superman is lying about his answers. In the
Oh,
interview.
yeah.
What did you think about that, Morgan?
That was such a twist at the end. I thought she
Yeah.
was going to be like so excited that she got this wonderful, like Oprah-esque interview.
Award-winning.
Let's say Let's say Pulitzer award-winning interview. She got at least one quote for that thing. And and when she said, like, I think he's a liar, I went,
I know.
gasp out loud. I just wasn't expecting it. And then I was like, what did she think he was lying about? Like, she asked him, like, where do you come from? And like, what are your powers? And he was like, I don't know. Like, I feel like if you were lying, would you come up with like a better answer than I'm not sure? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess she thought he was being cagey about where he came from. I that's all I can assume.
He seemed like he was being cagey, but he truly just doesn't know
He's
anything.
just ignorant about everything about himself.
He's like, who am I? I'm asking you legitimately. I don't know.
Who do you think I am?
Who do you like? Let's workshop this together. I'm open to whatever you're gonna come up with.
Yeah, that who am I thing is starting to get on my nerves. It was kind of cool at first, but this is the third episode in a row that they've been carrying this out. So I hope he finds out sooner rather than later. So the Daily Planet staff, we get to meet Kat Grant, Steve Lombard, Ronnie Troop. What did you think about them?
I liked their introductions. It was very much reminded me of like, I don't know if you ever watched Pokemon. I don't know if that was like
just a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert.
Neither am I. I watched like a little bit of like the first Pokemon that came out. There are Pokemon that I've never dreamed of that people know of, but it reminded me of like the two villains in Pokemon.
Oh yeah,
and how they were
Rocket something.
Team Rocket, and how they were always like posing as they did things. It was like because I think it's easy sometimes to like watch it and go like, oh yeah, like it's anime inspired, and like the animation style is beautiful and looks very anime-esque, but like sometimes you're just like, okay, but that the theme song, I lost it at the theme song because I hadn't seen it before, because I don't think it played in episode 1 or 2. Maybe I didn't pay attention to it.
I think you might have hit that skip intro button.
I think I probably accidentally. I'm always mad. I'm like, if I like the intro, I want to watch it. Stop making me skip. But I watched it on this one. I was lucky enough to not have accidentally hit the button, and it was so anime. I was dying. Everybody like looking dramatically off into the distance, and then like kind of like kind of squinting angrily, like, oh, they mean business. And then this was another case where it was like incredibly anime, where they're all doing like little poses and they're all explaining themselves to the audience. And I was like, oh man, this takes me back.
I've watched very little anime, but I recognize that as very anime-esque sequence. So Perry assigns this group that Lois nicknames the Scoop Troop to the Superman beat. So they are on top of it. So Lois is now kind of having to compete with them over the Superman stuff. Kat Grant says that she is gossip and human interest, which I thought was a great way to put that. Human interest in association with gossip. Steve Lombard introduces himself as the sports reporter, the award-winning journalism. So I guess he's an award-winning journalist, Steve Lombard. That surprised me.
Good for Steve.
He also says that he has people-pleasing good looks. So I'm glad he's really keeping it humble about that. And Ronnie Troop says she is an investigative journalist. And what's interesting about Ronnie Troop, I was surprised that Ronnie Troop was not a dude, because normally he's a dude in the comics. His name is Ron Troop. So here it looked like it was a she. So that was interesting. That was a different take on that. But I liked Ronnie, because Ronnie saw what Kat and Steve were doing and was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not participating in this nonsense.
And they were like, you have to. It's in the anime like clause. Like it's stipulated. You have to introduce yourself. And she was just like, fine, this is what I am.
She did have the spotlight
Okay.
come on her, but
That's
she
the
was
spotlight.
not.
She was like trying to get out of the spotlight. I thought that was really funny that you have like two of like essentially like going full like Team Rocket, and then you just have like one normal person who's like, hi, my name's Ronnie.
Does not want to participate.
So
in
funny.
it. But yeah, so these are the Daily Planet staffers. So I'm glad to get these characters officially introduced, because we had heard a little bit about them, but now we get to see them. So Cat Grant was her Cat Grant self, so I was glad to see that. So another connection to the Supergirl TV series. So there's a couple of things in here, and we'll get to another character who showed up from the Supergirl TV series into this show. So closing thoughts on the Daily Planet staff. Do you have any other thoughts about these characters?
I was excited to see Cat Grant. I was like, here we go. Like, I love how much the show loves to use characters that were in Supergirl, the TV show. We'll get to more of them later, but I was like, okay, continuing to stay legendary. Here we have Cat Grant. I really want more of her. I think she had such a fun attitude, and I think Cat Grant in particular really like the character really lends itself to like an anime kind of style of kind of over the topness. So I'm really excited to see where they're going to go with Cat as the season goes on.
Yeah, she is very theatrical for sure. The only other thing I'll say about the Daily Planet staff is that Lois takes their badges. So she takes Kat's badge, she takes Steve's and Ronnie's badges for Clark and Lois and Jimmy to use. And I was like, but don't they have their pictures on it?
Yeah.
I was confused about her plan to do that.
Because that drove me crazy. I was like, I mean, their pictures are clearly on it, and none of them look anything like anything at all like the actual people. So how are they not getting, like, there are so many reasons that the prison guards would be like, wait a minute, but like the fact that they just went in there with fake IDs that are like very obviously fake, it was like McLovin levels. I was like, they're not gonna get caught for this?
The security didn't check the IDs
The
to be like,
wait,
wait,
the prison is bad.
Yeah, you don't look like this person. Are you sure you're that person?
Kind of understanding how people broke out now. Though.
Yeah. The security is pretty lax at Stryker's Island, so that's unfortunate. Speaking of Stryker's Island, I guess we could get to another character that featured prominently in season 1 of the Supergirl TV series, Siobhan, aka Silver Banshee. Here she is, Siobhan McDougal, and I'm actually I'm having to go back into my notes here, because I cannot remember now if she is officially McDougal in the comics or not. Yep. So I think that's the comic accurate name, Siobhan McDougal. So here on My Adventures with Superman, that is the correct comic book version of the name. On the Supergirl TV series, on the Supergirl TV series, she was Siobhan Smythe. So different,
right? Yeah,
different take there. But she has a brother named Kyle who goes by Mist. And in the New 52 run of Supergirl actually has, I think it's volume 3, has a lot of interactions with Silver Banshee. And my personal take on that is it's actually the best part of the New 52, because she becomes friends with Silver Banshee and she gets to know Siobhan's brother. And I can't remember now. I think Supergirl has like a little crush on him. I cannot remember if that's true or not. That might be leaving my brain, but that's sort of what I remember. But so Siobhan does have a brother in the comics. So that was surprisingly accurate to me on the show. So I guess, Morgan, what did you think about this version of Silver Banshee?
Yeah, I thought she was fun. I was really excited to see her because obviously we love Silver Banshee here in this house. Uh, we love that she's so unpleasant that she can't ever, like it, but it's a family trait. So like you can't be too mad,
Yeah,
right? It's
it's
like
just part of her
it's
genetics.
part of her inheritance. It's like that's why no one likes you. Um, just one of the most crushing lines I've ever seen delivered on any media. It's like it's genetics. Sorry, that's why no one likes you. She's like, people like me. Uh, this version was, I feel like, a little bit more likable, which is strange because she just spent the whole time like robbing banks. I did appreciate that she's not quite there as a bank robber, right? She's early in her journey. She hasn't girl bossed her way into being like the ultimate bank robber yet, so she's kind of bad at it. I thought that was actually pretty endearing for a villain. Every time that they tried to rob something, they would just be like, Siobhan, oh crap, I didn't use the code name. That I thought was one of my favorite running jokes, is that they just kept on saying each other's names like very publicly and loudly.
She also didn't know there was a security camera in one of
That seems like a
locations.
That seems like a pretty big miss, to be honest. It feels like she's not everything she could be. She's not living up to her full potential. She's not really doing her research. She hasn't gotten her people into line like we're doing our code names. But I was interested in her Silver Banshee powers in this one because it seems like it comes from like a mask.
I think she has them normally, but her brother, when he gives her the mask, says that it amplifies sound. So I don't know if she like already had the powers, but in the mask like made it bigger, or if she's like when she screamed through the mask, it became the Silver Banshee scream. So I guess it's either one of those options. I sort of read it as she already had the powers, it just made her stronger. But you bring up a good point. It could have been that like the mask gave her the powers.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure. And like I think one of my like small critiques so far of this show that I've been like really enjoying is that I feel like they're not very specific with like the villains. Like I wasn't 100% sure how. I had like some questions about like how Livewire's powers worked and things like that. It feels like we're kind of, I mean, it is very animated, like just introduce a villain and then just like that's the villain of the episode and they're going to like solve this problem in 22 minutes. Only so much you can do. But I would have liked to get a little bit more backstory on Silver Banshee. Like what's her deal in this version?
Yeah, because now that I'm thinking about it, Siobhan was in Shtriker's Island and was just there. She wasn't trying to escape or anything. I would think that if she did have her Silver Banshee powers,
Yeah,
she
I
could
would
just
think
like
that
scream and get out of like would her scream be powerful enough to break the jail
that's
cell?
that's what I would think, is that like if she had the powers, she would be in some sort of higher security, like I don't want to say metahuman, but like some jail to keep people with powers in. Instead, she just kind of looked like she was at a regular jail. So I was like, is the mask giving her the powers? And if that's the case, like that's definitely not as fun, I think, as some of her other backstories. But
Yeah, I kind of like this like Gaelic curse that she has attached to her. I've always thought that was a really interesting character trait for a villain. But it seems like, I guess now that we're thinking about it this way, because I'm glad you brought that up because I totally had not thought about it in those terms. But Livewire gave this crew who called themselves Intergang, which I thought was interesting, Siobhan, Kyle, or AKA Mist, and then Albert, who goes by Roughhouse. They all have technical like weapons. They don't have powers. They just have this technology that allows them to do powerful things. And even Mind the Gap says in the chat, not a fan of all the villains being technological, and my only real problem with this show. So that would make sense that Siobhan's powers come from the technology, because that seems to be the way the other two characters had their powers. And Electra WWF also has, everybody has thoughts about this electrical power, technical power thing. Electra says, it seems like the villain's powers are tech-based, but in the cases where they merge with the tech, the power becomes organic. Interesting. thought.
Interesting. Yeah, I wish we had like a little bit more clarity around like the villains and like the powers and also just kind of the world in general. Like it seems like are there other aliens in this world? Are there other super people with powers or is that like completely out of the ordinary and
Do-
weird?
Do they know who they are?
Do they know who they are? That is a great question that I would like a little bit of more clarity from the show. It feels a little bit to me like early in season 2 of Supergirl, where you were like, "Wait a minute, the aliens have always been around?" It's like I just want the show to like set up the world for me, and then I don't mind. I will suspend my disbelief all day. I don't care, but like just you have to tell me the parameters of which we're like operating here.
Yeah. So I guess for right now, it seems like all of these villains just have the weaponry that Livewire provided them with, and I guess in keeping with the sort of weaponry aspect of it and robots and tech. So I guess we'll talk first about the plan that the Inner Gang has that sort of goes awry pretty badly. And then I would also like to hear your thoughts on the vision that Superman sees. So which is
Yeah.
sort of tied into that. So I guess we'll handle the first part first. So the plan to freeze everyone in the bank so that they could rob it. Your thoughts?
I mean, not a great plan. Did they figure out how they were gonna thaw? Like, did they know that the people were gonna thaw out? Or was that just like not caring whether or not they were gonna freeze some people to death? That's like a kind of a first question because they didn't seem particularly vicious to me. And I feel like you'd have to be pretty stone hearted to be
It's
like,
pretty
well,
heartless, yeah.
all these people are gonna have to go to the old the old iceberg in the sky. Uh, but yeah, I thought that I mean, I guess as a villain plan, it wasn't terrible. I did have a question about so they had like the ice gun. Was that supposed to be like a Captain Cold thing?
I would be curious if they bring Captain Cold into it. It definitely sort of had that vibe.
Right? Yeah, I was like, I spent like a lot of time going like, am I like, is it supposed to be like a Captain Cold thing? Like, it's a freeze gun, so that's where my mind goes automatically. But it did like the name was wrong, like, and obviously it was like her brother, so I was like, well, that doesn't feel right. But
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know if they're setting something up for that, but it wasn't necessarily a gun, it was this big machine. So maybe they'll eventually get to a Captain Cold sort of freeze ray gun thing. My problem with their plan is if you're gonna again, these are not smart criminals. They have not done things well in the past, so why would they succeed in this harebrained scheme? But they did not test their equipment. They used it once, and they had a glitch with it. They had an issue. It didn't turn off, and they had to like hit it a pretty with a pretty big amount of force to make it go off. That should have been a first cause of concern to make sure that the equipment was working before they went to rob a bank
yeah.
and attempted to freeze everyone, because eventually when they did execute their plan, they couldn't turn it off again. And that just seemed like they're not doing their pre-work to get there. They should have been much more confident about their technology before they got into the bank.
Yeah, they didn't really do their homework or their research, I think, on this one. I will say, okay, there is some defense of them because I said it would be pretty cold hearted if they thought that like they were all going to kill everybody with the ice. But Electra WWF says their fish was frozen, then was okay afterwards. So I think that they extrapolated out that like if the fish was okay, then people will be okay. I forgot that scene.
True.
I'm sorry to intergang.
That's very, very true. It didn't really cause that much harm. And to Elektra's point, that maybe the ice machine was not related to Captain Cold. It might have just been a plot device to cause Clark to use his heat vision because something needed to be cold in the episode in order for his heat vision to kick
That's a
And
good point. It's funny early in the episode when he's kind of like having the weird thing with his eye and like stumbles into Lois. I honestly thought it was going to be like the X-ray vision that we were going to do
oh no,
this
that would have been a
episode.
bad time for X-ray vision.
Uh-oh. And then like when it was like, all the ice stuff, I was like, oh, I guess it's heat vision today.
Yeah. He needed
Conveniently. Could you imagine if he was like, I've discovered X-ray vision?
Well, actually, in the olden times of DC Comics, X-ray vision was sort of used as heat vision before they had
Really?
heat vision. Yeah.
Ooh.
It's very weird. I think that's in the Silver Age, kind of early Silver Age. The whenever they first introduced supervision, it was X-ray vision, and they sort of used it like heat vision.
Weird.
It is weird. It is weird to read that. So just go read old comics. They're excellent and full of history. So what did you think about him developing heat vision? Is it weird to you as a viewer that he's figuring out, because it's a different take, that he's figuring out his powers after he becomes Superman? That's not typical of Superman stories.
Yeah, it is honestly like a little bit weird that he's Superman, but he's sort of discovering things as he goes along. It does, like, I hate to keep mentioning Supergirl, but we're a Supergirl podcast. It does
That's okay.
kind of
If you can't mention Supergirl on a Supergirl podcast, where can you mention?
if not
Supergirl?
here, where? But it does kind of remind me like the early episodes of Supergirl where she was like, I'll help, and then she like explodes like a ship or something by accident, and she's like, whoops. But at least she knew what all of her powers were. Like, this is such a different take on the character where like he had like a scary like situation as a kid, and like Ghost Jor-El like scared him, like traumatized him so much he was like, no more figuring out powers anymore. Like even Clark on Smallville, like though he never figured out flight because he didn't want those flights or tights.
He did at the very end.
At the very end, but not before that. They
when
didn't
he
have
absolutely
budget
had
for that.
to. Yeah.
But like even he like figured out most of his other powers as sort of he went along. So yeah, it's kind of weird to be at this point in a Superman story where he is like wearing the costume and saving people and fighting villains, and he doesn't know he has heat vision. And I kind of like that, because honestly, we've seen so much of the other version that this is kind of interesting. It's like, there's a couple different ways that this is a different take on the character, and this is just one of them. But it is weird to be at this point in his like story and him not know that like he has heat vision.
Yeah, I've been trying to keep up with it. So he obviously can fly. It seems invulnerable. He's got super strength. He's got heat vision now. Does he have super hearing? It looked like he had X-ray vision.
I don't. Yeah. Has he used the super hearing though?
I don't think so.
I feel like given this episode with the heat vision, like there's gonna be like a whole episode devoted to his super hearing. I mean, I guess in some ways, like I was just saying that like Clark on Smallville discovered his powers, but he had like there was the episode where he figured out heat vision. There was the episode where he did where it went down where they're like, no, the way that we're going to visually represent super hearing, we're gonna look inside of his ear.
We're just gonna go all the way in.
No one wants that, please. Hopefully they represent it a little bit better in this animated show.
Now I will defend, and this is weird coming out of my mouth, I will defend Smallville's version of the super hearing, because I really like that episode, because there's that really great scene where I think the episode is titled Whisper.
Yes.
And, the scene with Martha and Jonathan with Clark in the barn, and they're testing his super hearing, and they're like whispering to him to see if he can hear it. That was when Smallville was good. It didn't last too long. That was like
season 1, season 2, somewhere in that realm.
It was early Smallville, yeah.
Because I think by like season 2 or season 3, he had discovered like most of his powers at that point.
Rachel in the chat asks, have we seen him use super speed? Yes, I think so, because he's been able to he's transitioned from Superman to Clark Kent at various speeds. He's also super sped into his apartment to change really quickly, so I think he has used
in this episode, after the really epic interview, when he flies away, he then comes right back in as Clark, like,
and he messes up his hair so it looks like he was running. He's out of breath. He also sounded like Christopher Reeve at that point, because when he said Lois, it sort of sounded like Christopher Reeve saying Lois, which I
Oh,
thought,
really?
I don't know if that was intentional or if it just happened to be the way he said it. I thought that was interesting. It just kind of sounded like that. Rachel also asks, has he used X-ray vision? It sort of looked like X-ray vision in this episode where he was X-raying a door or something on the floor. I think when they were in the prison looking around the cell.
Oh.
Somebody can fact check me on that, but it looked like X-ray vision there. Let's see. I don't know that we have we seen him use super breath? I don't think
so. That feels like one that they would like if they're going to do whole episodes about him discovering powers. This freeze breath feels like it's a pretty easy send up for a power discovery episode.
Yeah. Also, if this show wanted to be really different, the superpower they should use and introduce is super ventriloquism.
Why do none of the different
Nobody does it
of Superman ever include that? It's the most helpful skill you can have.
It's the best.
It's the best.
Superman and Supergirl have the ability to throw their voices. I don't know why you would want to do that, but it seems
so
like
funny.
it could come into play at some point. I just think that would be really fun if they wanted to really, because this show seems like it wants to dig into the comic book mythology. That would be a cool superpower to see actually be portrayed. Let's see. I think Elektra says, I think he was able to see outside the bank when he was fighting the bad guys inside. So I think we haven't, I don't think we've seen super hearing or super breath. So we'll have to look and see if he is going to be developing those in the future. Okay, well, is there anything else that we need to talk about in regards to this episode? Morgan, or do you have any other thoughts you wanted to share?
I don't think so. I like that. I mean, they left it on a cliffhanger, so now I'm like, oh my god, what is gonna happen? Is what's Lois gonna do? I want the next episode. So I actually like that the little twist that they had at the end kept me wanting to come back for more. Good job, show.
I want to know if Jimmy got the seven followers. Did he get that seventh follower?
Call. Is Flamebird taken off?
You know what? Maybe we should have a sound effect for that.
Yes.
I think I can do that. I think
Really?
I can add an audio file into StreamYard. So maybe we could just plug Flamebird every now and then in the discussions, and we'd have to like play it
just very gently in the back.
I'll work on that.
How does StreamYard not have this functionality yet?
It should be built in.
They have a variety of cool, funky music, but no soundboard.
We will have to work on a Flamebird. Caca. So we'll have to see if we can find it. I don't know, Electro WWF, if we could actually play the sound effect from the show.
I mean, it's very short, so we could probably get away with it, but we probably don't want to walk that line.
I'll try to see if I can find a royalty-free hawk sound or something. We'll have to figure out what kind of bird that is.
I mean, if it comes to it, we could just record one ourselves.
Oh, yeah, we could. That would actually be way better. I'll just take something from this episode.
I see a question from Rachel in the chat who says, do we think this Siobhan and Livewire are going to meet or team up?
I sure hope so.
That would be amazing. Listen, I hope they give each other makeovers and then team up as God intended.
There is precedent for it. So I think that would be amazing. So we'll see if that happens, because they are connected through that technology. So Livewire kind of disappeared because I think she got taken in by Amanda Waller and Deathstroke, who showed up at the end of this episode.
Yeah.
By the way, we didn't mention that. It looked like Slade Wilson had gone undercover as like a first responder and went into the bank. And I guess he's maybe recruiting the inner gang characters to be part of the Suicide Squad, maybe, I guess. So there's a long... a slow burn story with a Deathstroke, it seems, on this show. So we'll have to see if we find out anything else about what he's up to. But yeah, I'm liking my adventures with Superman so far. My only real critique is the writing. Some of the writing, I think, has tended to be a little bit repetitive, especially in the instances where Clark is asking something about who am I, and somebody runs in and says Clark or Superman, and responds with an answer to that question. It was cute the first time, the second, third time, it's getting a little old now. So I wish the writing was a little bit stronger, but the visuals and the interpretation of the characters and the stories are pretty good. So I am still enjoying it for the most part. So I'm excited to see the next episode and see if Lois gets her interview published. I'll be waiting on with bated breath to see if she doesn't get it stolen.
Does she get it this time?
Do they let her have it? Okay, well, I think we should maybe get to some feedback, because we actually had some feedback this week.
Yeah. So Mark sent us an email writing, I probably would have written sooner, but I listened to the entirety of your episode 400, and it's taken me a while to catch up on everything else.
It's a long episode.
Listen,
that's my fault.
It's an epic length episode. Enjoy. I do want to say I was surprised and flattered that you effectively gave me the last word on that episode by closing with my intensely adequate comment.
It's one of our favorites, Mark.
Listen,
so it's a good one.
If we had packaging, it would be on the box.
Yes, yeah, it would be the pull quote.
The pull quote.
Yeah.
That was a big surprise, and now I'm going to give you an upgrade. What's the superlative of mid? Thanks, Mark. Always keeping us humble. We gotta stay hungry on this podcast. Mark goes on to say, on the topic of your episode count, a few years ago on the DC community, I asked the question, how many total episodes of Supergirl comics had there been? And he, valiant sort that he is, came up with the answer that as of the end of Rebirth, there had been 269 total DC Comics issues of series titled simply Supergirl, not counting her run as the lead in Adventure Comics. So, at this point, there is a lot more Supergirl Radio than there is of canon Supergirl in the comics.
We could do this podcast forever and ever.
Listen,
it's unending.
We won't be stopped, and we can't be stopped.
there's so much Supergirl that we haven't even touched yet.
That is a promise and a threat to our listeners.
I think this is maybe a controversial thought, but I think Adventure Comics should be included in that count.
Yeah,
Supergirl was a big deal in Adventure Comics. They gave her basically her own line of Adventure Comics. So
did they really?
Yeah, it starts out as like Adventure Comics, and then it becomes like Supergirl, and then like there's Adventure Comics kind of tied into it. And those are some of my favorite Supergirl comics. That's like the 70s, 80s era. I love those are. I mean, the Sterling Gates run is pretty great, and Woman of Tomorrow is excellent. It's just chef's kiss, A+. But the Adventure Comics are the ones that I go back and reread, because I think it's just so interesting, because it takes, so Supergirl is sort of learning how things go with her powers and who people are in the Silver Age. And then in the 70s, she goes to college and she starts, being her own hero, and she sort of grows up a little bit. And that's such an interesting era of Supergirl. So if you haven't read the Supergirl Adventure Comics, go read them, because they're just, a lot of them are one-off stories where like she's chasing down a haunted house, or like she's helping one of the football players at the college she's going to. Like it's just, they're all really like they're adventure stories. They're adventure comics.
Ooh,
they're comics that have adventure.
Well, I know that we have plans to read a bunch of the comics as we go along. So
yes,
I'm excited for whenever we get to there, whenever we decide to do some of those.
Oh, we will have to go through the run of Adventure Comics, because it is good stuff.
Nice. Mark says, regarding the Flash movie, which I really enjoyed, something occurred to me about the cameos at the end. With the exceptions of Nick Cage, who probably worked at union scale just for the chance to be Superman in a movie for 45 seconds, he named his son Kal-El, after all. What? Did he really name his son Kal-El?
Did you not know that? Yeah, his son is Kal-El.
No, that's not a person's name.
Yeah,
Whoa.
Henry Cavill named his dog Kal-El.
No, that's a dog name.
And Nicolas Cage named his kid Kal-El.
Wow, he really likes Superman.
Really committed to it.
I'm glad he finally got a chance to do it, even though he was sort of uncanny valleyed in the final product. But listen, Nick Cage, you made it. You did it. Mark goes on to say, and the special effects guy who appeared as Jay Garrick and Helen Slater, all the other cameos had one thing in common. Those people are all dead. My hunch is using dead CGI actors is really cheap compared to bringing in Grant Gustin for a scene, and we all know where WB is with finances these days.
They're not great. They have not had a lot of wins. My question about that is, this is something I don't know, so I'm just speaking out of ignorance and curiosity is, if you did use a dead character or a dead person, a dead actor in a scene, would you have to, I would assume you'd have to get that okayed by the family, by the estate to use their likeness. Would you then have to pay a royalty fee to use their likeness? Is that something that they're arguing in this actor strike that they're doing?
That's actually that this really dovetails really well with like what's happening with the SAG-AFTRA strike, because I feel like they would probably have to get some kind of clearance from the estate, right? Before
you can't just use it.
The likeness of an actor who's passed. But this is one of the things that they are striking about for the Screen Actors Guild, is that these studios were starting to like full body scan actors for different things, especially as more movies have like substantial CGI and effects, and they were starting to like sneak things into contracts that were like, we can use your full body scan in perpetuity.
Right.
And people are like, wait a minute. So you can just like put me in a movie that I never agreed to be in, just like deep fake me on like somebody's body? That's weird. I don't want that.
That's so scary.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if have you watched any Black Mirror, Rebecca?
I have not. That seems something that would freak me out.
So there is an episode in the newest season of Black Mirror, which I think is like season 6. It's the first episode. It's called Joan is Awful. It's not that bad.
That sounds great.
It's not that bad in terms of like some of the episodes in Black Mirror are like deeply disturbing, and I would not suggest just to like a random person to check those out. But this one is like, Mike liked it, and he usually goes, I don't want to watch Black Mirror with you.
Yeah, but Mike has a higher tolerance for horror.
That's true. I've worn him down over time. I've destroyed him. But but he was like, oh, that wasn't so bad. But basically the premise is that they're using this woman's likeness in like a TV show, and basically like making a TV show out of her life, and then it goes like more and more, and everybody is watching it on Netflix, which in the show they call Streamberry, but is very clearly Netflix.
Streamberry.
And it kind of it's so funny because like when all the SAG strike stuff came up, it's like, oh my god, like the joke has always been that like Black Mirror is like a couple years away from like what actually happens to us in reality. And it's like, oh my god, their Black Mirror goes again, like essentially like thinking of this thing that's going to happen.
I think 30 Rock was ahead of the curve. In 30 Rock season 2, the first episode, it's called Seinfeld Vision.
That's right. I forgot about Seinfeld Vision.
And Jack Donaghy wants to put Jerry Seinfeld in a bunch of his shows. And Seinfeld goes to his office, and he's like, I think Jack asks him like, which shows do you want to be in? And Jerry goes, he's saying this to an NBC executive. He says, I like Lost. Do you guys have that? Which, of course, if you know, Lost was on ABC, not NBC. So
I loved how
that's
many
one of my
Lost
favorite episodes.
Jokes there were in 30 Rock. It was really so funny.
Yes, for a Lost fan, 30 Rock is a great place to find humor. So yeah.
I see that like Mind the Gap has weighed in and said Dr. Sleep recast actors instead of faking actors from The Shining. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you instead of like using people's faces and stuff like that without the actual performance, yeah, just cast somebody. But yeah, I think, I wonder if it is I mean, it probably honestly is than paying like an actor to do work. It probably is cheaper to like get permission from an actor's estate or pay some amount of money to an actor's estate. And it's probably also like, I hate to say like time efficient, but it probably is. It's probably like easier to do. So that means less shooting, which also means cheaper. But yeah, I mean, did it look great?
Yeah, I don't think it was free. I don't think it was completely cheap, but it was probably cheaper. But man, I would have loved to see Jerry Seinfeld on the island in Lost.
Well,
I was thinking of
I gotta say, I'm just gonna put this out there that we know that Jerry Seinfeld is also a big Superman fan.
Oh yeah, you could put him in it. Why hasn't he ever been in a Superman movie?
So I feel like that was a missed opportunity to just randomly shove Jerry Seinfeld. Could you imagine at this like deep, powerful moment where suddenly you're getting like a bunch of weird flashes of other superheroes and you're like, what's happening here? I didn't ask for this. And then suddenly it's like Jerry who's like, what's the deal with kryptonite? Would have been amazing.
Someone should put him in a Superman thing. Why has he never been? He was in he had a commercial back probably in the 90s where he was like walking around talking to Superman.
Yeah, I remember.
I don't think he's ever been a guest in anything.
No, it does seem insane to me that he's never been on any like Superman adjacent property, especially because like there were so many Superman references in Seinfeld, like the Bizarro version of Jerry, Bizarro, like, you know, Elaine and everything. It's crazy that he's never been in anything. I mean, if anybody knows of something besides that commercial Superman wise that he's been in, definitely like write us and let us know. But I can't think of anything.
Could we get him in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow? Could we cast him as somebody in Supergirl?
Oh, yes. We should send these suggestions along.
Could he be the voice of Comet the Super Horse?
Yes.
Not that Comet doesn't speak, but maybe the movie version does.
The movie version could. Let's do it. Could you imagine the horse being like, what's the deal with oats? We've got it. This is going to be amazing.
Yes. Somebody please put Jerry Seinfeld in some sort of Superman story. That is just ridiculous.
Want this for Jerry.
Oh my gosh. Ridiculous.
Getting back to Mark's email, which we got far afield from. Mark says, I'm also enjoying my adventures with Superman. The big words, nicknames struck me as something that was a deliberate golden age throwback. Even if the original Newsboy Legion didn't have a member with that name, it definitely sounds like something that wouldn't have been out of place back then.
Actually, hang on.
Oh,
so I just looked up big words DC Comics. So, according to the DC Fandom Wiki, Big Words is a member of the Newsboy Legion named Anthony Rodriguez, notable for his intelligence and articulation. The original Big Words was active during the Golden Age, although his son Anthony Rodriguez Jr. would later take up the mantle. His compatriots include Gabby Flippadippa, who I need to do research on. I don't know anything about
that.
I need to find out about Flippadippa, Scrapper, and Tommy Tompkins. They have all been involved with Project Cadmus. So Big Words is indeed a character
real
in the Newsboy Legion. He was created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, first appearing in Star Spangled Comics number 7, 1942.
Good job, Mark. Good catch.
Solved
Big
the
Words
mystery.
is indeed real.
All right.
And Mark finishes up saying, finally, I'm wondering what your thoughts were on season 3 of Superman and Lois. It honestly struck me more as This Is Us with the occasional flying sequence than it did as Superman show. Some of the conversations between Clark and Lois were so deep and so personal, I alternated between being stunned that they were having them on the CW and feeling uncomfortable listening in on them, even though I know they're actors and none of it was real, for them anyway. So especially since Superman and Lois Radio vanished, I'm wondering what you thought and what your feelings were on it.
So I am personally behind on Superman and Lois. I have not watched any of season 3 yet, although I have heard that there are things that would be connective tissue to me personally because of what Lois goes through in the season. So I am looking forward to watching it, and I'm going to have to watch it within the next month because I just found out that I was going to be on a panel at Dragon Con discussing season 3 of Superman and Lois.
So you got to do that homework.
I've got to do the homework. And I was going to watch it anyway, but I'm just really behind on it. So Mark, if you want to hear my thoughts, I don't know, we could maybe get Morgan's thoughts.
Oh, I have so much to catch up on. I've watched the pilot.
Morgan, You have got to watch.
I know it's on the list. I wanna this feels so strange to me as somebody who came up in like the Smallville fandom where like I was so annoyed at Lana all the time. But oh man, I just want to watch it for Lana.
Lana goes on a real journey in season 2, and I really need you to watch it.
I'm so excited about it.
And I think you would also enjoy the take on Bizarro world. I think and Lucy Lane is in season 2 very prominently, so I think you would very much enjoy that. So Mark, since Morgan is much more behind than I am, you will be able to hear my thoughts because I plan on recording the panel at DragonCon and releasing it as a Supergirl Radio episode. So even if I don't have my thoughts now, you'll get them early September probably. So be on the lookout for that. And I should also mention, Mind the Gap in the chat says Flip, who is in My Adventures with Superman, one of the news kids, is basically a female version of Flippa Dippa. So I think in addition to our Guardian character spotlight, maybe we need to do a Newsboy Legion specific character spotlight.
My arm.
Maybe we need to dig into the actual members of the Newsboy Legion and learn more about them. And Electra says you guys should do all the Super Fam shows for DC TV podcast. Well, we'll take that as a compliment.
Oh, I thank you.
I don't know if we have the time for that.
Maybe not, but we'll take it under advisement.
But I guess if there is a super related something, we'll try to chime into it at some point. All right. Well, I think now that we've gotten our discussion out of the way and we've also gotten through some listener feedback, maybe we should make some snap judgments. In the game of Snap Judgments, each person is presented with 2 options, but must only choose one. First instincts are recommended and explanations are unnecessary.
Okay, our first Snap Judgment is from Mark, who says, Eric Wallace said that if he had a season 10 of The Flash, he was hoping to do Darkest Night.
Which is a comic book run.
Nice.
It's a comic book storyline.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Which of these 2 characters would you have wanted to see come back as a Black Lantern zombie? Caveat, the other would never return to the Arrowverse. Season 1, Kelly, hashtag RIP Kelly, or William
Day. Okay, so the snap is that whichever character we pick to return as the Black Lantern zombie, the other character never comes back to the Arrowverse.
Oh, okay.
So if I pick William, that means Kelly can never come back.
No more Kelly.
This is the most obvious answer in the world. I'm gonna pick Kelly because I want her. Because all right, here's
Bring
the 2
her back.
two reasons. Not that I hate on William Day, fine character, great baker, crappy babysitter. But a fabulous baker.
Not a great babysitter. No.
Not a great babysitter. But not that I don't like William Day, but in this scenario, I get to bring Kelly back as a Black Lantern zombie. So she's a zombie. And then she has the potential to reappear in the Arrowverse. So those are twice the reason. So I'm going to pick Kelly.
This is tough because I feel like there's some fun, like baking related things that could happen with William. I don't know what zombie baking is like, but I think it's probably
it would involve brains as the main ingredient.
Yeah, it's probably real gross. It's probably like, oh, would you like some of my brain pie? But I mean, the allure of bringing. I mean, I feel like we only scratched the surface of OG Kelly. So I gotta go with OG Kelly. Also, I feel like William's totally real girlfriend who lives in Canada has just started to heal from that hurt. And I don't want to inflict that upon her. She's in Canada. She's very real, and I can't do that to her.
Let her live.
Just let her live.
Yeah, I think we had always wanted to see OG Kelly in her villain era because I think even Carly Nycanon thought that she could have had the tendency to go to the dark side. So I think seeing her as a Black Lantern zombie would really check off all those points. It looks like people in the chat have some thoughts. Rachel picks OG Kelly. Electra WWF says William would be a good Black Lantern zombie. And Rachel also says we need the OG Kelly versus Kelly Guardian fight.
Oh.
So Kelly Guardian, who I love that listeners are still calling her Kelly Guardian.
That's a real name, right?
Because that was a mistake in recording one time. And,
I think that's her canonical name now, Kelly Guardian.
So Kelly Guardian would have to fight the Black
That would be
Lantern
amazing.
zombie.
Like 2 Kellys enter, 1 Kelly.
Why are we not in charge of these stories?
Listen, we have so many good ideas. Nobody ever listens to us.
We have our own writer's room.
We do.
Like Supergirl Radio in the chat. We could come
We got this. Guys, come on.
One episode in the future. I don't know when, but we need to have an episode where we come up with a story for Supergirl.
Supergirl Radio writer's room. I love it.
Yes, we should do it.
I love this.
Although we can never probably use it as an actual story because DC Comics would probably be like, no, we're not. But maybe we could. And we could give just everybody who contributes story credit.
There you go. Unlike the leadership at the Daily Planet on My Adventures with Superman, we would credit all of you.
Yes, we're not going to just take your ideas. So maybe we could. That would be really interesting. I think I told you before about that Dragon Con panel I went to one time where it was like a creative villain panel. So there would be there was this artist who was drawing on the screen. Everybody could see it in the room, and he'd be like, pitch out, a trait that this character is going to have. And somebody yelled out, "He's got a scar!" And then somebody would be like, "Okay, so what's this deal? What does this guy like to do?" And somebody's like, "He likes to play poker," or whatever. And so like they would draw him as they're like yelling out things from the crowd. They drew this character on the screen. It was awesome. It was so cool.
That sounds so cool.
I cannot do that artistic wise. Maybe we could get an artist to come on and draw us. Like we could create a Supergirl villain and maybe something like that. But I mean, we could coax somebody to come on and draw us a Supergirl villain. But that would be a fun thing to do because I feel like we pitch so many things. We should get those ideas down.
All right, our last snap judgment is Siobhan writes down the times 4 a.m., 1 p.m., and 5 p.m. Of those options, which is your favorite time of day?
which time of day would you plan a criminal heist? I don't like 4 a.m. because I don't like getting up early anymore.
No, that's tough.
1 p.m. is 1 p.m. is sort of close to lunchtime.
Yeah.
And I like lunchtime. Lunchtime is good. It involves a break. But I guess 5 p.m. is like the end of the day. Hopefully you're finished with work and you're not taking it home.
Time for
crime.
all.
Yeah, it's time for crime. So I think at 5 p.m. I think would be a good time for me.
I think 5 p.m. too. I don't want to have to listen, if it's 4 a.m., I'm probably gonna have to stay up until 4 a.m. because I'm not gonna get up at that time. So that's gone. So I've just no-showed our criminal enterprise. That's not good. 1 p.m. I might be hungry. It's lunchtime. I might have forgotten to eat earlier, and I might be like, it's time for a little cheese and crackers for Morgan. Let's get rid of one. I'm going 5 p.m. We can go and do our crime after work, so I can get in my full work day. I don't want to take time off. Yeah, I'm taking a half day to do a bank robbery. That doesn't seem like an effective use of my time. I like my vacation time.
All right. Well, I think that is going to take us out of Snap Judgments. No judgments on your Snap Judgments. Okay, well, I think we need to get to some Supergirl Radio and some DC TV podcasts plugs. If you would like to contact Supergirl Radio, you can post a comment on our website at supergirlradio.com. You can email us at supergirlradio@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can call us at 678-718-7252. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram, all at Supergirl Radio. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Podchaser, and Spotify, where we also have a Spotify playlist that includes music featured on and inspired by the CW's Supergirl TV series. We are listed on DC's fan page, which you can find at dccomics.com/DC-fans. If you like what we do, we encourage you to give us a rating and write us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy our Supergirl Radio live streams, make sure to subscribe to the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel and hit that notification bell to get notified when we go live and wired. DC TV Podcast also has a TeePublic store, so if you're in need of new DC TV related t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, onesies, mugs, notebooks, pillows, or stickers, go to supergirlradio.com and click on the TeePublic store link at the top of the page.
Hello, and thank you for calling the DC TV Podcast hotline. Please listen carefully as some of our menu options have changed. Supergirl Radio? Press 1. The Flash Podcast? Press 2. Legends of Tomorrow Podcast? Press 3. The Lithuanian Room? Press 4. DC on HBO Max Podcast? Press 5. Stargirl Podcast? Press 6. Superman and Lois Radio? Press 7. Green Lantern Podcast? Press 8. The Sandman Podcast? Press 9. Justice League Dark Podcast? Press 10. DC After Dark? Press 11. For all other inquiries, please stay on the line and the next available agent will be with you shortly.
And we have some designs in the DC TV Podcast TeePublic store that we would like to suggest.
Yeah, we mentioned the Crisis on Infinite Earths animated movie that is supposedly, I think still, even though the tweet was deleted, I think it's still coming in 2024. So there is a Comica Girl design in our DC TV Podcast TeePublic store that is about, it makes a little Crisis joke. One of my favorite t-shirts. I think it's a great design. And also we have a Daily Planet photography staff design in there. You can get t-shirts, mugs, stickers, all that kind of good stuff. I may have to get that. I think that's great. I'm a new Jimmy Olsen Flamebird believer, so I feel like I need that Daily
Yes.
Planet photography staff shirt to pay homage to my new favorite animated version of Jimmy Olsen. So there's a lot of cool designs in there. So if you need some stuff for the summer, that's a good place to go check it out. And we would like to thank our legion of super sponsors for supporting Supergirl Radio through our Patreon. These people are Michael, Anne Marie, Yvonne, Quinn, Nicola, Abby, Miriam, Nicole, Brian, Ethan, Danny, Majuba, and Lingonberry. So if you would like to become a legion of super sponsor, go to patreon.com/Supergirl Radio. And thank you for your support. And I guess I could talk about how you can keep up with me. You can find me on the social media platform Vero, where I share what I'm watching, what I'm listening to. Sometimes I'll share links of Supergirl Radio in those posts, and I'll post some pictures that I've taken every now and then, because Vero does better with pictures than Instagram. So you can find me on Vero at Derby Kid. You can also find me on Instagram, where I share a lot of cat videos and people doing inspiring or silly things. You can find me on Instagram at the Derby Kid. You can also follow and subscribe to my personal YouTube channel if it's a 7 follower kind of a day. You can find me at youtube.com/duckmilkprod. It is on my to-do list to get more content up there soon, so please stay with me. I have lots to talk about. I still haven't talked about my full circle experience in meeting Zack Snyder, so that is on my high priority to release something about that. So you can check me out on my personal YouTube channel. You can also keep up with my travel experiences on social media and on YouTube at Oasis Broom, where I am posting content from the trips that I take with my family. So if you're interested in seeing where we go and what we do, that's a good place to do that.
Yeah, I love you. I love the Oasis Broom. I saw the Grounds for Sculpture reel that you put up was very cool recently.
The sculptures were very lifelike. And it was a
They
little kind of scary a little bit.
Their eyes followed you.
Like it was like, is this a real person?
Excuse me, sir? Oh no, it's a statue.
But yeah, Grounds for Sculpture was such a cool place. I highly recommend people go there, because it was a neat ground for artists to express themselves. I thought that was a very unique experience.
Very cool place in New Jersey. I always bring people, if people come visit, I go like, hey, do you like sculptures?
And it's a nice place to be outside. You can go take a picnic. You can go read.
Yeah,
we got walk. Yeah,
we got really nice weather too, so it was perfect.
They also have peacocks that just kind of run around.
Yeah, some
And
of
they
them
pose.
are chill. They're happy, and some of them are angry if you get too close. Don't mess with peacocks. It reminds one of the first times I had been there and I like saw the peacocks. I like made the 30 Rock joke because remember I was like, oh, I was like with my mom. I was like, Mom, look, it's Argus.
Oh yes. Oh my gosh, I've completely forgotten about that episode. Wow, I have to go back. That's a great episode of 30 Rock. That
Yeah.
Argus episode. I
Like,
haven't seen it forever.
I've been
though.
going to grounds for like ages, and then like we went one time and like the peacocks were, and it was after that episode, and I was like, oh my god, it's Argus. Such a good episode. First off, Grounds for Sculpture is great, but also watch the Argus episode of 30 Rock. It's so good.
Watch 30 Rock in general. It's a fantastic show.
Okay, you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Mojotastic, and you can also find me as a co-host on the Legendary Ladies podcast, where recently we've ranked our top 5 episodes of Avatar, The Last Airbender, and Korra, and just this week we talked about the smash hit Barbie movie. So
Nice.
if you want to listen to our discussions on any of those topics, you should make sure that you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, where it is at the Legendary Ladies. We're at the Legendary Ladies on Instagram. We're Legends_podcast on Twitter, and we are, I think, at the Legendary Ladies Pod on TikTok. TikTok is still mostly a mystery to me. But we're on there. We're doing it. We're doing the thing.
That's awesome. I think we're still waiting to hit 1,000 followers on Instagram for Supergirl Radio, and if we get to 1,000,
we're still not quite there yet.
We'll start a TikTok if we get to 1,000, but we have not gotten there yet. But that's awesome. If you need somebody to make a guest appearance to talk about Oppenheimer, I'd be happy to be a guest. I'm just like inviting myself onto the list.
I would have to. I think we'd all have to go see it first. And it is unfortunately kind of a long movie. So finding a day, like I went to go see Barbie on like a Monday night, and the theater was packed. It was insane. But like I was like, oh man, if I had gone to see Oppenheimer at the same time on a Monday night, I would have gotten back at like 1 a.m.
Yeah, I had to go see it at a 10:30 a.m. showing.
That's the right way to do it.
Because I was like, if I go at 6 o'clock, I will be tired. If I go to an 7, 8, 9 o'clock, I will also be tired. I'd rather hit it first thing in the morning while I'm
have your coffee
ready to go.
Oppenheimer, ready to go.
Yeah, so I thought it was pretty excellent myself. So
nice. I have heard it's very good. So I'm looking forward to it.
I have not watched Barbie yet, but I plan on going to see it. Oppenheimer, the only critique I have is like unnecessary nudity. I feel like is a thing I could go without.
Have you seen the thing floating around in that, like, I don't know what country, but there is a country where they weren't comfortable with the nudity, and they like CGI'd on a little black dress on Florence Pugh.
I would have preferred that actually. That would have been my version that I would have rather watched.
I saw it going around on like I don't remember like what social platform, but it was like, what are you wearing? The CGI modesty Florence Pugh black dress. It was so good.
Well, that's my one big critique of the movie is I was like, that kind of took me out of this story a little bit. So it's R-rated. People should not be taking their young kids. It is an R-rated movie.
Who is taking a young child to see Oppenheimer?
There was it looked like a grandmother. She was an older woman of a mature age with her. It looked like her grandson. He could not have been 9, 10 years old. He kept getting up. He was in my row. This is just me complaining about movie audiences. He was in my row and kept getting up. He got up 3-4 times during the movie. I didn't know. Was he going to the bathroom? I don't know. It was a long movie.
He's probably bored.
But I was just like, kids, stop getting up. Just sit. And he would like get up because his grandmother was like sitting in a couple of rows behind him or something. I guess they couldn't get seats together. And so he would go up and talk to his grandmother, and he was talking pretty loud because he was trying to talk over the IMAX sound. And I was like, you need to like. I wanted to say something, but of course I didn't because I try to be a nice person. But that kid was way too young to see Oppenheimer. So I don't know what grandma was thinking. So don't take your young children. Do not take your like 7-8-year-olds.
It's not like a cheerful, uplifting movie that you would want to maybe like take your children to.
It does include the detonation of the atomic bomb. That's a heavy material. Heavy material. So just a word of warning. It's not for small children.
That's intense.
Yeah. So but movies are back. I feel like it was like the biggest weekend of the year for movies. So I'm actually very happy to see that.
Barbieheimer weekend did really well.
No matter which one you saw.
Did you see the video of the one girl who like created a Barbieheimer outfit where it was like black and then it was like belted and she like took off the belt and it like unfurled into a pink outfit and then she was ready for Barbie. I was like, I love everyone this weekend. Just the energy of Barbieheimer weekend was incredible.
Yeah, it was funny. I was talking. This is so unrelated to anything, Supergirl Radio. But before we wrap up, when I went to go see Oppenheimer, the theater that I went to, I guess, did not have a lot of people working that day. So there were 2 people doing concessions, only 2. And there was this humongous line.
In Barbieheimer weekend?
Humongous line. So we were all in like nowadays, I don't know how it is with your theaters, but you can't just like, there's usually every now and then there's somebody, but usually there's not a person at the front anymore, like scanning your tickets. Sometimes sometimes you have to go to the concession to get them to scan and print out your tickets.
Oh, weird. No, like and a lot of the stuff is like kind of app based now. So usually like I'll walk into my normal theater, which I couldn't see Barbie at because it was too crowded. And like show the ticket on the phone, they'll scan it, and then like I'll go in 2 concessions.
Yeah,
that's weird.
Typically, if there is a person there, they'll just scan the app ticket or whatever. But if there's nobody there, you have to go to the concession and get them to print it out. So there was nobody there that day when I went to go see Oppenheimer. So I was like,
oh no,
crap. Well, I had to go pick up my popcorn anyway, which I did the mobile popcorn, and it was useless because nobody was manning the mobile pickup thing. It's a whole thing. But I say all of that to say there was a very long line at the concessions, and I got because to pass the time, I got into this conversation with this really nice couple. The guy was so excited about a Nolan movie. I could tell he was a big Nolan fan. And I assume it was his wife that was with him, but she was wearing this pink dress. And I said something about, are you going to see Barbie? And she was like, no, why does everybody keep asking me that?
That's amazing.
She just happened to want to wear that pink dress that day to go see Oppenheimer.
So confused. She's like, as like girls in pink dresses walk by and say, "Hi, Barbie," and she was like, "What is happening? What's happening to me?" When we went to see it, even on Monday night, it was so mobbed that we had to go to a different theater than our normal usual theater, and in the lobby, like literally everyone was wearing pink in the lobby. I was like, this is such an such a fun movie going experience. How excited people are for this movie. But yeah, I love that the Barbieheimer did so well this weekend, both of the movies.
It shows that if you have an original idea, an original concept, it doesn't have to be a cinematic universe. It can just be a good film.
Imagine that. We actually talk about that a lot in the latest Legendary Ladies episode about like how refreshing it was to like not be going to a franchise film.
It was really nice. I sat down and after Oppenheimer was over, I was like, cinema.
And then
cinema has come back.
The movie ended. And the movie is over now. And
there's no post-credit sequence for Oppenheimer.
For another movie. Yeah, exactly. The lack of post-credit chef's kiss.
I was so excited. There were like layers and themes. And I was like, oh, I'm not used to this anymore. There's like things to think about in here. And I can actually decide how I feel about it. Nobody's telling me what to feel. It was very refreshing. I will say that. I agree. Okay. Well, I guess even though we didn't come here to talk about Barbie and Oppenheimer, people got a little discussion of that if you wanted it. But I think that's going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio. But until next time, I'm still Rebecca Johnson.
And I'm still Morgan Glennon. And with sci-fi weapons and a Superman becoming the norm, what is next for Metropolis?
McGurk! I love
Not
typing.
mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom, because
She looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. So fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Yeah!